Appreciate everyone joining us on a busy, what I have to assume is a busy Thursday morning or afternoon for all of you, depending on where you're joining us from. We absolutely appreciate you carving out the time to join us for the conversation today. Of course, partnership with GradGuard and NelNet, combining our efforts, if you will, our mission here in higher education to help you all protect some important key initiatives on campus, including very important recruitment initiatives, retention, revenue. And we'll get into the weeds in terms of the program and the partnership. Really what we're going to be covering, if I kind of break it into three sections today, is what is the NelNet GradGuard story? How did this partnership emerge, and what were both parties trying to accomplish through this? We'll talk about some important issues that are no doubt impacting your students, your families, and then all of you, your administrative teams, those of you that are joining us today. And then we'll also get into some weeds in terms of a successful tuition protection program. What's covered? How is it deployed, specifically when we get into the NelNet GradGuard partnership and that functionality, both quick pay and enterprise systems. Before we do that, though, certainly we want to do some introductions. Jess, I'm going to pass the baton over to you, allow you to introduce yourself, have any intro comments that you'd like to make.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Jess Modolzari. I am the Strategic Partnerships Manager at NelNet Campus Commerce. My job is to work with all of our fabulous partners in the field to make sure that when you need us to be integrated with another partner, another vendor, we are doing that for you and maintaining those relationships to make sure that we are serving you best. I'm so excited to be here with GradGuard. They're a wonderful partner for us, and we have a fantastic integration to be able to show you today, along with presenting their wonderful product.
Very good. Thanks, Jess. Appreciate that. I'll take the baton back. Everyone, my name is Derek Scheid, Vice President of Campus Development here at GradGuard. My role is working amongst the team throughout the nation who engages with campuses as they evaluate GradGuard and the various platforms that we offer, just to make sure that we're a good fit, not only for the mission and the goals and the objectives that you and your administrative teams are trying to meet and accomplish on campus, but that we're also the right fit in terms of servicing your students and families. We see ourselves as an extension of that experience that you're creating for families. And so I'm a part of the team that makes sure, we go out and we make sure the campuses feel confident and comfortable in GradGuard, that we are that extension of the overall experience that you're looking for. I think an important part of my own introduction is to express my own empathy, if you will, sympathy for all of you joining us today. I come from a campus background, so I am a former student accounts manager, bursar, director of financial aid, director of student finance. And I always like to start with that because I certainly have worn similar hats to you all in terms of having to facilitate conversations with your students and your families in these important and serious conversations and situations we find ourselves in. The entire platform and program that we're here to talk about today is to really help protect your students and families when things go wrong. And so when we think about the conversations that we as administrators have to help facilitate and walk our families through, if you put yourself in the mindset of that student or that parent, and I have an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old, and they're already going through something bad, and they're going through something bad enough that it's already causing us to have to think about our enrollment and potentially take that medical withdrawal or that leave of absence from school, it's a bad situation. If it's already severe enough that we're having to consider that, it's bad. Then we as administrators get to compound that problem and say, well, we know you're already going through something bad, and if you have to withdraw, you're also going to owe us $5,000, $10,000, whatever that amount is. Talk about exacerbating an already bad situation. And so I certainly, again, I think empathize is the best word to use, because it's not an easy conversation to have. And that is absolutely where our team wants to be a partner with you to help ease that burden that comes along with that. We always like to start with, what is the story? How did this partnership between NelNet and GradGuard even evolve? When we first joined forces, if you will, and started having those conversations, and I'm lucky enough to have been in Lincoln early on, when those conversations were evolving with our team and those of you who had known the NelNet team for years, from Amy Stover to Jackie to various folks on the team over there, when we started our conversations in terms of what a GradGuard NelNet partnership should be about and what we're trying to accomplish, it was not just about how do we sell as many tuition insurance policies as we can to families. That was not the end goal. That was not the mission of this partnership. It was really about filling a void that we knew between both parties and both organizations, a very serious void that we had an opportunity to do. So instead of making it about just providing families with the ability to evaluate tuition insurance and make a decision about it, there was a very important first step that we all knew came before that. And so really what it came down to, this partnership was founded on three really important pillars. The first one being an opportunity to fill a gap when it comes to financial literacy. Making sure that families, students, the families that are investing on campus are aware of very important policies in terms of how your institution treats their investment on campus when something goes wrong. Making sure that they understand that if they do have to take a medical withdrawal, how you and your teams are going to treat that investment. Will they get their money back? If so, how much? There was definitely an informational or educational gap there that we knew that we could help fill by combining our technology and approach. And so we'll get into that in a little bit more detail because that is very instrumental and key to the partnership. Both parties also believe that this should be a voluntary active choice for families. We never think that tuition insurance should be a required or waiver opt-out type of approach, but should never be a required program for students. Instead, what we've built and what we both believe in strongly is that we are here to help educate your families about their options, give them the tools they need to make an educated decision about their investment on campus and protecting that, and then make it easy for them and affordable to opt in voluntarily and protect that investment if they so choose to do so. And then third, no friction, right? We want to make this easy for you and your campus teams in terms of implementing and setting up the program. We want it to be easy and affordable for your family so that if they are saying, yes, this pertains to me, I am interested in purchasing a tuition protection policy, we want to make that as easy as possible and streamline the entire process. Streamline the implementation, meaning our team engages directly with NelNet to help create and roll out the platform on behalf of your institution. We also want to make it very easy in terms of very few steps required for your families to evaluate this and make an educated choice. When we have the right integrated solution in place, which we do with NelNet, we see families and students opting in this program more than they ever have before. And we'll get into some scenarios, but really what it comes down to is historically students and parents, families just didn't know that they could protect their investment in education. Now they will, or now they can. And so we see historical and kind of legacy type campuses, if you will, where students and families are opting in at greater numbers than we've ever seen. Upwards, some campuses we're seeing upwards of 30% of students and parents opting in for this type of coverage. And in the process, ensuring 100% refund policy acknowledgement for you and your campus teams, again, filling in that gap, that educational gap that we knew existed. We're actually going to start with a poll question here. So before I get into some very important, trends that you all are probably already aware of, but we always like to start with getting you all thinking about how this can be relevant to your own campus. So we're going to start with this first poll question. And we're asking, do you currently have an active acknowledgement of your institutional refund policy? A lot of you probably have it out on your website. It's part of your financial responsibility agreement forms, maybe. But are you requiring your students, parents, authorized users to acknowledge that they've had a chance to review that? So we'll leave this up. My colleague Shonda, she just opened that up for you. So we'll leave this up for maybe 5 or 10 seconds, allow you all to answer that question. Okay, and we will see, great. So over half, right at half, we'll call it 51%, right? You do have an active acknowledgement to your refund policy. That's fantastic because that is the end goal and the end result we're hoping for. For those of you who either don't or you're not sure, that is where the technology and the partnership becomes so important because we will give you the ability now as a NelNet campus user to initiate and implement an active acknowledgement to that refund policy. And we're definitely going to show you exactly how that works and the benefits. In terms of GradGuard and who we are, our mission at the end of the day, the only thing that we do, so whether it's me, our team, our campus success teams, our account managers, my colleague Shonda, who's joining us today, our entire team is focused on the higher education experience. More importantly, helping schools, those of you joining us today, helping your students and your families protect themselves from the risk of college life. That list of risk is long, right? We talk about physical risk that could be coming to campus, falling and breaking the leg. It could be a fire or a flood in your residence halls. It could be theft and vandalism on campuses, but there's any number of risks that come along with coming to school these days. And so what we want to do is put very informative ways out there for students and parents to better understand those risks and then make that voluntary educated decision for themselves of whether or not these types of programs make sense for them. Because we are so mission focused on that user experience and ensuring that this is more about educating families about their options and about the financial investment they're making on campus, we're very proud of the fact that over 650 campuses across the country now believe in GradGuard. They are confident in GradGuard and our mission in helping protect those students and families. It speaks volumes where we've come from since 2009 when we were founded, to go from a handful of schools to now more than 650, approaching 700 very quickly. That is a large number of campuses if you think about it in terms of overall higher education institutions in the country who have now transitioned to some type of tuition insurance program. Over 1 million students that we've helped protect in terms of that risk that they carry when they do come to school. What it comes down to is your families are absolutely seeking confidence when they invest on campus. This is really starting to get into, as we talk through these next few screens, the overall intent of the session today, right? Which is helping you all protect some very important initiatives on campus, starting with recruitment. It's hard enough to retain and then maintain or retain those students. So when you think about an admissions counselor and you're trying to go out and convince that family that it is worth the investment to come to your campus, that's a hard job. We have a lowest confidence in higher education than we've seen in a long, long time. The most recent Gallup Lumina survey, as we have listed on here, is at 36%. So only 36% of families, students and families across the country, feel fully confident in investing in a higher education degree. There's any number of reasons behind that, whether it's less trust from campuses. It's predominantly, as we move into that second point, though, that students at a greater number than ever are bringing any number of issues, concerns, pre-existing conditions with them to campus. So if you think about it, you put yourself in the shoe of or the seat of a mom or a dad of an 18-year-old, and you know that your child suffers from some kind of pre-existing condition, we're already crossing our fingers that this goes well, especially as an incoming freshman. We need additional tools and help to increase that confidence for us to say, you know what, my institution that I'm investing in, they're a partner for me if anything comes up. They believe that we will be successful. And if not, they've given me the resources and tools to better navigate those situations when they do come up. Because mental health related conditions are at an all-time high. I'm not telling you all anything that you probably don't already know. Every week, every day, as our team engages and speaks with campuses, this is the number one issue that seems to be impacting all campuses nationwide. I was on a student affairs webinar back in the fall where they said we can no longer refer to the mental health situation that we're in as a crisis. It's no longer a crisis. This is just the new normal. And so what that means is because this is the new normal and as students and families are bringing higher levels of related conditions with them, as administrative teams, we have to pivot. We have to think outside the box. We have to look at new solutions and tools to better help these families be better equipped in how they handle these situations when they do go wrong. As a result of the pandemic, families now, they understand they need to plan for the unexpected. Even if I go back to my days in the bursar's office, and most of you all, whenever you were students or when I was a student, we spoke to parents all the time who I have a healthy 18 or 19-year-old. They're invincible. Nothing's ever going to happen to them. I don't need to protect my investment. They're good. We're going to get this done in 4 years. We all lived through a rough 2 to 3 years where we now know we need to plan for the unexpected. And so this goes back to the point that that's why we're seeing greater numbers than ever of students and families opting in for this type of coverage. It wasn't historically previously that they didn't think that they needed to protect their higher education investment necessarily. It's that they didn't know that they could. And so through the partnership with Jess and her team and the functionality that we'll walk through, we're now delivering an environment where students and families do better understand that they can protect that investment in higher education. Because while your students and parents and families are seeking greater levels of confidence in moving forward with that investment, we also know that it means it's a greater toll that it takes on you and your administrative teams. And quite frankly, you need help. You need the resources to better adapt and provide your students and families with the tools they need. The greater number of students that are impacted by these types of situations, the greater number of students that are impacted by mental health related conditions, and they do have to take that medical withdrawal, that's creating growing financial losses for all of you and your teams. The more students that have to withdraw or maybe go through an appeals process or are asking for a refund, absolutely that impacts your receivables. The more you have to write off, the more credits you have to give back, the more adjustments you have to make. That takes a serious financial toll for institutions. Then we move into your enrollment management initiatives. Again, it's already hard enough to recruit these students, much less maintain them and retain them. We have a very important statistic I'll share in a couple slides that I think your enrollment managers specifically on campus would be interested in. I highly encourage you to take that back to them in terms of what this type of program can mean in terms of retaining those students. Then we talk about the receivable piece, right? I often joke, I shouldn't joke, because again, coming from the business office, I shouldn't joke about it, but it does cause PTSD, I think, for a lot of us in terms of student accounts managers, receivable managers. The last couple of years, we've been getting hit from every angle in terms of new legislative measures that are coming out, new laws that are being passed, that more and more are restricting our ability to collect on these balances. So if a student does withdraw and they do owe the institution money, quite frankly, they're making it harder and harder for us to be able to collect on those balances. So earlier on in the student experience, the more students that we can see participate in a program like GradGuard, you're shifting that risk and that receivable over to GradGuard. Allow us to pay those balances off on behalf of your family so that it's no longer a receivable for you. You're not having to chase down that student or family. You're not having to turn them over to collections because GradGuard's already paid off the balance on behalf of that family. And again, this entire situation, from students and parents needing more help to the impact it's having on your campus teams, it just means that campuses are looking to expand the toolkit, think outside the box. What are some new solutions and tools that our campus, our institution can look at in helping mitigate these situations we're running into? And collaborations. This is where the NelNet and GradGuard partnership and collaboration means so much and is so important for your institutions, all at no cost, mind you, that we can help deliver this functionality and ensure that students and families are getting the confidence they need to enroll, and that you and your families are getting, your colleagues and your administrative teams are getting the resources you need to better navigate these situations when they do come up on campus. Families are not prepared for when something goes wrong. Even in the best case of scenario, when students and families and parents have saved for and they've planned for college, they're doing so thinking in the best case scenario. If you think about a traditional 4-year undergraduate degree, if I'm dad, I'm thinking about 8 traditional semesters. I need to get my student through 8 semesters and we're golden, right? They are not thinking about, well, what if my son or daughter has to take an unexpected leave of absence and now suddenly I do have to pay for an additional 9th semester or 10th semester. They are not financially ready to do that. In a survey that GradGuard conducted coming out of the pandemic a couple of years ago, 25% of parents indicated that they could not pay for an additional semester of class if something went wrong. Almost half of them said it would absolutely be difficult for us to cover that financial loss and ensure that my student could stay in school or could come back to school to finish their degree if something goes wrong. And that's putting my bursar hat back on. I think a lot of you can speak to and understand that situation where when the student leaves because they did get into an accident or they got sick or they're suffering from stress or anxiety, they take their time away, they heal, they're ready to come back. And then the worst case scenario is now they're excited about coming back to school. And then we have to share the bad news of, we understand you're ready to come back, but how are you going to cover that $5,000 balance that you owe us from when you were enrolled previously? That situation alone, you all can attest to, is one of the biggest reasons why students never come back to school, because of that pre-existing balance. So if we can help eliminate that and give them an open door back to campus when they're ready to come back, it's a win-win for everyone involved. From a financial literacy standpoint, an alarming statistic that came out of that, though, was 81% of parents or the authorized user or payer on the student account did not know what the institution's refund policy where their student was attending. meaning they did not know, they did not understand that if my son or daughter withdraws halfway through the term, what do you mean I'm not going to get my money back? I didn't realize that the institution wouldn't be nice, understand our scenario or our situation, and just give us our money back. They don't understand that. And so that information gap alone is where the functionality becomes so important that we're going to walk you through. This is a great chance to pause. We'll do another poll question in terms of who handles your appeals process. Our team hears lots of answers to this. So if you think about that student, they withdraw, they don't like your refund policy, so they are going to ask for an exception. Most of you push that through an appeals process. Who handles that appeals process? Is it you in the bursar's office? If you're a bursar joining us today, is it through the student affairs or the dean of students office, some kind of joint committee, or is there a kind of an other category of how you handle those situations? Okay, thank you, Shonda. And we will see about 27% directly through the bursar's office, 14 through dean of students, 30% joint, 30% other. Very common. A lot of schools I meet with, there's either been some kind of transition in terms of how these have been handled over the last few years, especially coming out of the pandemic. What I know as fact, though, our team, when we meet with schools who don't already have this program implemented, by far and away what we are hearing, regardless of who handles the appeals process, we're seeing more appeals than we've ever seen before. We are asking, from our students and parents more than we've ever been asked for exceptions to the rule or to, bend that refund policy if at all possible. And the great news is with a program like GradGuard implemented and the data and the information we can give you about acknowledgments to your refund policy, it should give your institution the ability to greatly reduce the number of appeals, exceptions, those tough conversations you get into. We're going to help minimize and reduce the number that you have to accommodate, because what it allows the institution to do is revisit how you handle these situations. There's no right or wrong answer. We have some schools who, once they implement GradGuard and they have this type of system in place, it allows them to say, hey, we no longer really have an appeals process. That's why we offered you the ability to opt in and purchase GradGuard. We have some who say, well, we'll give you one and done, right? We as an institution still want to do right by you as a family. And so, yes, we will still grant you a one-time appeal. But after that, there are no exceptions. You better consider having GradGuard moving forward. Those are just a couple of different examples. There's no right or wrong answer. But what it will allow you to do, though, is to at least revisit how your institution thinks about the appeals process and potentially adapt those policies to greatly reduce the number of appeals that you see come through the door. The statistic that we've included, and I think that, again, this is an important one, so write it down and take it back to your enrollment management folks specifically. A great statistic that we had, and this is, I think our asterisk at the bottom is coming out of the wrong survey. Well, don't think it was 2023, but regardless, what we now know through our own claims data is that nearly 75% of students who have GradGuard, they pay a claim and we pay out on that claim, they are returning to school or intend to school. So that's where we can not only help recruit those students, giving them the confidence they need to invest on campus, but of equal importance, if not more, is give that student the ability to return and get back into their seat and closer to degree completion. So we're going to help align with those very important initiatives you have, not only from the beginning or the end of that student experience, but while they're enrolled, to ensure that they get the support, the tools they need from you all to get through that experience, get back into class and closer to degree completion. When we talk about the tuition protection program itself, so what does tuition insurance cover? GradGuard, very proud of the fact we are the only form of tuition insurance for students that's available nationwide through all schools. What we are really talking about historically have been medical related events. And that can be a long list of various events that impact students that you can see on the screen here, from things like serious accidents, injury, illnesses like mono, or I fall and have a concussion, or I break a leg, to chronic illnesses, pre-existing conditions, diabetes, Crohn's disease, any of those pre-existing chronic conditions that students are already bringing with them to campus. That's so important because, again, going back to that confidence that families are looking for, If I'm dad and I do have that 18-year-old daughter who's coming in as a freshman and she suffers from diabetes, I'm already crossing my fingers. And so knowing that our policy can help protect them, that's that confidence I'm looking for as a parent. The mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, by far and away the biggest bucket in terms of the help that we hear that we're bringing to campuses. We talked about it earlier. I mentioned it earlier that most campuses, almost every campus we talk to in the country, that mental health condition bucket is the biggest one impacting student success on campus. Knowing that that's covered through GradGuard, we can again be seen as that partner to that family if and when something comes up. We then expand that though, death of the student, death of the tuition payer, there's any number of other medical related events, and we're more than happy to meet with you individually and walk through exactly what's covered, what's not covered under the program. Historically, though, it again always ties back to some kind of medical related event. However, we're very, very excited for the first time ever, late in 2024, we were able to add our first non-medical related event to the policy, which now covers loss of employment. So whether that's the student, the tuition payer, mom or dad, whoever's considered a primary or authorized user on the account, maybe depending on terminology, if they're losing their job because of downsizing or layoffs, and this is coming out of the pandemic, a direct benefit that we were being asked about not only by schools but from families if we covered this, and we were having to say no because again we were talking about medical related events. This is a great indication and example though of how GradGuard listens to our schools and our policyholders to say, what else can we be doing for you? What are the other situations and voids that you're hearing about on campus that we can be a partner on? And loss of employment was the number one thing we were hearing about coming out of the pandemic. So 2024, we launched that at no additional cost to families. They don't have to opt in or pay more to have the loss of employment coverage. We simply added it to the policy as an additional benefit. When we talk about the price, and again, I'll restate this, the entire program is free for your institution, whether it's GradGuard delivering the program, it's NelNet's functionality that we're working with them to turn on behalf of your institution. That is all provided to your institution at no cost. It's paid for by the families who choose to voluntarily opt in and purchase the program, and that rate can be as low as 1.2%. We will get into specifics with your campus when we have an opportunity to meet one-on-one, talk about the program, how it can be deployed specifically for your campus and getting into the details. But we say, rates as low as 1.2%. We'd like to give you that just to give you an idea. For families purchasing $10,000 of coverage, in most scenarios, it's going to be $120 to purchase that $10,000 of coverage. So when you think about the overall investment that family is making on campus, it's relatively inexpensive compared to the overall expense that they're incurring. For most families, higher education is now the second highest investment they make. It's the home, followed by higher education, and then other luxury items like boats and cars and trips. We insure all of those other things in our life. So again, why as a family would we not protect this investment that we're making in higher education? Now families can, and at an affordable rate. Again, just over 1% of the entire investment that they're making on campus. What does tuition insurance cover? We like to say it's not necessarily the best named product, because when we say tuition insurance, a lot of folks just think it's tuition, but it is comprehensive. We look at the entire investment that your families are making on campus. So not only tuition, but we're going to look at other non-refundable fees. We're looking at meal plans, room and board. When we say housing is covered under the program, we further define that as both on and off-campus housing expenses. So not only the charges that you're putting on the student account for your own residence halls, but we're also going to work with that family for any off-campus housing expenses that they run into, maybe a termination fee to break a lease, or utility expenses, to break a 12-month agreement as an example. If they run into those various situations when they're living off campus, we're even going to work with the family to help reimburse them for those expenses. So when we say the investment they're making on your campus, it is the entire investment: tuition, housing, room and board, fees, etc. So how do we do it? So we've talked about what's covered under the program, how much it costs. So what does the functionality look like? What has been done in collaboration with Jess and her team over at NelNet to ensure that, one, it's seamless for your teams and an easy experience for your students and your families? The example we're going to walk through, and again, keeping in mind whether you are an enterprise school or a quick pay school, this is available to you with very similar functionality. But really, what we're trying to do at the end of the day, the functionality that exists and that is so important, and again, what you're going to see on the screen here, before we even talk about tuition insurance with your families, and keeping in mind what you're seeing on the screen here is going to be displayed to not only your students, but their authorized users on the account. That's very important because if you think about and putting yourself in the mindset of that 18 or 19-year-old freshman or sophomore as an example, when we talk about this type of information, it's going to go right over their head, right? I don't need tuition insurance. I don't even know what tuition insurance is, but thanks for telling me about it. Mom, dad, the tuition payer, the authorized user on the account, especially when we talk about your undergrad population, it's very important that they also have access to this. So this will be displayed to all users associated with the student account. But the important first step is that disclosure of your institutional refund policy. Now, this can be customized and displayed in a number of ways, meaning some campuses have a very detailed specific date approach, right? You get 25% by this date, 50% by this date. Some campuses have what you're seeing on the screen here, where maybe 0 through the first 10 days of school, you get this much back. Whatever that refund policy is what we are going to build into your environment within NelNet. The important piece and component of this is not only do they have a chance to review it, but the all important, I acknowledge that I have read the above policy. So we are going to require your students and authorized users to acknowledge that they've had a chance to review this. More importantly, this then becomes archived for you and your administrative teams. Because what we want to do is we want to start to deliver the functionality and the story that you're able to share and explain to your families is that we gave you the ability to review our refund policy and you signed off saying that you understood it. And then we gave you the ability to either decline or purchase tuition insurance. If they say yes, they're interested in purchasing tuition insurance, the entire transaction is handled right here within the NelNet environment. We are not redirecting them out to the GradGuard website. Again, I put on my bursar hat. If my student or family has made it this far and they are this close to paying their bill to the institution, the last thing I want to do is send them somewhere else, right? So we're ensuring this entire transaction takes place within your quick payer enterprise environment. If they say yes, we're going to go ahead and process the transaction. However, financially, that transaction is taking place between your families and directly with GradGuard. It's not going on your student account. This is not a receivable for you, not even a line item on your student account, on your invoice, if you will, right? That transaction is directly between us. So there's no accounting, there's no reconciliation. Your campus never takes possession of the funds. It is a completely clean transaction between your families and GradGuard. If they say no, this is good. Just going to give you some examples. Those of you who are joining from a NelNet campus, right, you know what the payment experience looks like. You have this today, but we've just included this in just to kind of give you that real life scenario. But once they've provided that payment information, we're going to give them real-time payment confirmation. Here is your confirmation number. GradGuard is then going to reach out to that family with the policy information that they need, our customer service information, etc. We handle all of the customer service directly between your families and GradGuard. A new update, and just correct me if I'm wrong, this is a great chance for you to highlight the functionality within the NelNet system, though, is an addition that we've made recently is the addition of the tuition and fee protection section within the student account within that portal. So not only are they seeing everything else that your campus delivers through the NelNet portal, they now have the option to go in and view specifically the tuition and fee protection, i.e. GradGuard, if your campus is participating. If they've added tuition protection and they already have GradGuard, congratulations. They're going to see a message right here that says you already have tuition insurance through GradGuard. If you have any questions, if you need to make any changes, please contact GradGuard with our phone number. That's key, right? Because what we're also trying to do is minimize the customer service component for you and your teams. We don't want this to be a lift. This should not be something that your teams are having to manage. So any questions, concerns, any changes, anything GradGuard related, we want to make sure that they're reaching out directly with us. So our customer service information will be listed there. Jess, anything you want to add about this? Because I know this is a relatively new, exciting feature, but we definitely wanted to highlight this.
Yeah, it's fantastic. is often referred to as like we call second chance, but it's not just second chance. It's until your policy is no longer available chance. So they anytime they log into Quick Pay or Enterprise, it will be available. And for those of you who are using our Enterprise platform, this exact format won't look completely familiar, but it'll be one of those boxes that are similar, looks just like the payment plan box, the billing box, whichever box products you have. So it lines up and looks like it belongs there and is an easy click for your families to get to no matter which system you're using.
Great. Thanks, Jess. Just highlighting that message, our customer service information. The alternative scenario, we've gotten this far and I'm a user and I say, no, I'm not interested in tuition insurance. No harm done. What we're basically showing is that we have completed our mission, right? Which is getting your families to acknowledge the refund policy, make an active choice, yes or no, and then our job is done, meaning we don't want this to be a harassment for your families. We don't want every time your family comes in through NelNet to be, oh, do you want GradGuard? Are you sure you don't want GradGuard? How about GradGuard, right? We just want to give them the tools they need to make that educated decision at the beginning of every new season, new billing season. That's critical. And then once we have that archived, again, through GradGuard's partner portal, you and your team will be able to log in and view all of that activity, pairing it with the acknowledgement of the refund policy, and then the choice the family made to either purchase and protect the investment on campus or to say no. And then that information paired together is the story that we want to put in your hands as you counsel your families. And again, this goes back to the ability to revamp, review, reconsider your appeals process. This 1-2 approach is what has allowed so many campuses to take a more conservative approach once they implement the program. Because as a campus, what you're able to say is, we see here on June 1st, you acknowledge the refund policy, and then you declined tuition insurance. So unfortunately, there is no recourse. We're going to have to adhere to our published refund policy. Or best case scenario, we see that you acknowledge the refund policy, and actually we're showing that you opted in and have GradGuard. Contact GradGuard to initiate your claim and ask any questions you have about the process and how to begin that, right? So we give all of that information through our portal directly to your team, much in a self-service manner, so that you can have full visibility into the program, who's participating, and all of that very important data. We love to talk about success stories. Rutgers is a very important partner for everyone involved, right? For just you and your team at NelNet, for GradGuard. Rutgers has actually been a partner for several years now, even before we were able to turn on the integration for them. And really what this entire screen does is it really sums up the impact that the integration can have on the number of families who see the value in tuition protection, and then the ease of enrollment. So if we go back to academic year 2022-2023, before Rutgers was able to utilize the shared functionality we're talking about, they had in the fall roughly 36 families that purchased tuition insurance. Now, at the end of the day, GradGuard has no minimum participation. If we can help 36 families, then we've done our job. We've helped protect 36 families in the investment they've made on campus. That's great. There is no minimum numbers we're looking for. However, going into academic year 23-24 is when we worked with Rutgers to turn on the NelNet integration and that functionality. Fall over fall, we went from 36 families to over 600 families just in that one season who saw the value. And that predominantly comes back to the acknowledgement of the refund policy. Once we're able to remind those families, again, keep in mind, you may not get your money back if something goes wrong. That's when we suddenly see the lights go on and families are saying, oh, okay, well, now that I know that, I should probably look at the tuition protection program. Then we went into academic year 2024-25. That number doubled from there. We're now at over 1,300 families for the fall who have opted in to purchase the program. That will continue to go probably up year over year. It's one, word of mouth. It takes a while for families to adapt to something new. We all know that, right? And so we always like to tell schools, you're not going to see a change overnight. This will take several academic years to really meet its full capacity on your campus. But even 1 year over year, you can see the impact that the functionality has had on a campus like Rutgers. And we see this as a great opportunity to now protect, over 1,300 families at Rutgers alone have shifted that risk to GradGuard, right? We now have, I thought we had the number on here, over was I forget how many millions that we have in place specifically at Rutgers. The great news is 36 million, the second bullet there. Over $36 million of risk has been transferred to GradGuard just at Rutgers. And we paid over $100,000 in claims just recently. So the program works, your families are being impacted. And again, you're shifting that risk, you're giving the families the confidence they need to move forward with that investment on campus. And so again, to tie back, we titled this session specifically helping protect recruitment, retention, and revenue on campus. So hopefully we've done a good job. Hopefully I've done a good job of walking you through from a recruitment perspective, making sure that families see your institution as a partner, as a collaborator when they're enrolling on campus and they're writing that check or they're going online to pay that hefty tuition bill. They need the confidence to move forward in terms of making that kind of commitment to school. And knowing that as an institution, you're thinking outside the box, you're thinking proactively in terms of helping those families, you can increase your recruitment initiative in terms of helping those families find the confidence they need in moving forward with their enrollment on campus. From the retention perspective, that very important statistic, right? 75% of students are returning to school or do intend to return to school. And then of course the revenue, right? The more students that you can shift that responsibility to GradGuard in terms of allowing us to pay off the balances, allowing us to manage and facilitate that process, reduce your appeals and the number of exceptions you're having to make on campus, we will no doubt impact the bottom line and your receivables on campus. And so while we do that, we're helping to increase financial literacy on campus. We're only doing this in a voluntary mechanism and with no friction. Make this as easy as possible. Sometimes after we set up a school, and Jess, I think you can attest to this too, we have schools say, well, is that it? Yeah, it's on, it's running, right? That is literally all it took from your team to get this up and running. That's typically within 1 to 2 phone calls. So we want to make this easy. We want to make it quick with little to no resources on campus, no IT resources. Typically, whoever your users are who work with the NelNet platform, that's typically who joins our setup call, and that's it. So we want to make this as easy and frictionless as possible. Jess, I'm going to pause. Any additional context you have, other points you want to make before we kind of turn this over to Q&A?
I think you've covered it pretty well. Just to give an additional point of clarification on that refund policy, we know those can change year to year. So your account manager over here will just check in with you as well as your account managers over at GradGuard. So that way we can make sure we have those updated every year. But that's all it takes to update them. Nothing more than that.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Jess. I appreciate it. We will certainly open it up to questions in terms of next steps. What I will say, and Jess, you made a really good point, right? In terms of the collaboration with your account management team over at NelNet, with GradGuard, you can reach out to your folks at NelNet who you work with and let them know you're interested in having a conversation with GradGuard. We will facilitate that. You can also reach out to GradGuard directly, simply at get@gradguard.com, and that will get you in contact with our team, and we will be able to help facilitate those initial rounds of discussions, answer your questions, pricing, anything that you have about the program. But certainly want to open it up to any questions, scenarios. Would love to hear from folks on the line and thoughts that you're having.
Derek, we do have a question in the Q&A. It's a little bit lengthy, so I'm going to have you go over there and read it if you could.
Okay, let's see if I can get over there.
Or I can read it out loud to you if you want.
Okay. Yeah, it's not because I think I'm sharing my screen.
Oh, yes, right. I'll read it to you. All right. So, with so many students coming into higher ed with pre-existing conditions, can you clarify the policy surrounding pre-existing conditions? In facts, I see pre-existing conditions are generally excluded with few exceptions. How transparent is this information to the student and family when they are looking into it? And then they also know the vast majority of their appeals are coming from students with pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not sure who asked it, but I'm glad that you did.
Sorry, that's Renee Howard. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, Renee, thank you for asking it. It is one of the most common questions our team gets during the evaluation process, because to your point, pre-existing conditions are what drives so much interest in the program. That's why I go back and I talk about mom or dad, and I have an 18-year-old who suffers from XYZ condition. Is that covered? That's that confidence I'm looking for. So we do, what I always like to say is we don't like to give definitive, yes, we do cover that, or no, we don't cover those types of scenarios. Those are the types of scenarios in question one. We're always going to want to encourage and invite your families to speak to GradGuard directly so that our trained licensed agents who are on the phones can hear about the symptoms, the conditions, get a better understanding of what the student is going through to be able to say, yeah, that is typically covered under our program, or no, it's not. So it's a very hard question to answer. I'm not trying to skirt the issue, but it is so specific to the individual situation that the student is going through. We want to help families, right? We're in the business of helping and paying claims. So while we don't necessarily have language on our website that speaks directly to pre-existing conditions, we're very transparent about it. Meaning, if a family calls in or they reach us on our website, we will send them sample policies. We will give them the verbiage they need to make an educated choice or decision about the program. And then we're always open and willing to have a conversation with a specific family if they know they're bringing a condition with them to campus to help determine if that's something that's typically covered or not. What I always like to make a differentiator between, and sometimes I know my claim folks probably aren't so happy about this, but I think it is the best way to describe it in layman's terms. There's a big difference between an accident and a pre-existing condition, right? Or a chronic condition. So it's almost like if you think about buying your car insurance after the car accident. So if I'm a student and I fall and I break my leg right before classes start, and I go and buy a tuition insurance policy, and then I end up having to withdraw because of that broken leg, I'm not saying it won't be denied or that we wouldn't pay that, but it's just going to open the door for more questions because you knew when you purchased the policy, you had just broken your leg. That's very different than a chronic pre-existing condition like diabetes, Crohn's disease, mental health related concerns where, yes, my student has been suffering from this for months, days, years, whatever that is. Those are the types of situations where we want to work with that family and provide them the coverage that they need and that they're looking for. But it is a very hard question to answer, other than to say we do cover pre-existing conditions and we will work with your families one-on-one, depending on what those pre-existing conditions are, to answer their questions and give them the assurance they need before they would actually purchase the policy if that's what they're looking for. Long-winded answer, but again, it's a great question, but it does require a long-winded answer, I think, to give an accurate response to that. So thanks for bearing with me. And just because I cannot see the Q&A, are there any other ones out there for us right now?
We don't currently have any others out there. Does anyone else have any questions they want to throw in the Q&A? It's a great time to pick Derek's brain. He knows so very, very much. It's impressive.
Well, Jess, I appreciate that. Thank you. I live this on a daily basis, right? We take it very, very seriously here at GradGuard in terms of we know that we carry a very important role because we can help create a successful situation and a successful outcome for students and parents, especially coming from a campus background myself, where I have facilitated those conversations. So yeah, I appreciate you acknowledging and seeing the passion that I have for it when we talk about it and we get into it. So I appreciate that.
We have another question that just came in from Cindy Wilson. Can international students enroll also?
Yep, Cindy, thank you again. Great question. Not only can international students enroll and participate, but what it means is that any student enrolled at your institution can participate. So this is meant to be for all students on campus, whether they're part-time, full-time, undergrad, grad, non-degree seekers. To your point, international students can participate. Anyone enrolled at your institution is eligible to participate and purchase a policy.
All right, and another question for you. What is the time frame for implementation of this should a school choose to go forward with this? And this is from an anonymous asker.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks. So our typical implementation timeline that we like to throw out is going to be within about 2 weeks. So it's a rather quick process. I've worked with enough schools to know that the longest part of the entire process is typically procurement. There is a contract that's involved, right? It's about a 4-page agreement that we would get into place between GradGuard and the institution, which allows us to work with your students. Once that paperwork is set up, though, we would immediately schedule an introductory call with our account management team. We want to better understand your refund policy, your billing dates. If we look at your fall term, when are you going to start sending out bills? When are they due? Very important data points like that. We then work with the NelNet team behind the scenes to build this out in your iteration of the portal. We come back for a testing call, and once that's done, then we can push it into production based on whatever date your institution wants to turn this on. So for most schools, we're going live within 2 phone calls, and that's typically in short order in less than 2 weeks. So the good news is us having the conversation here in early May means we still have time, right? If you're a school who's joining us today and you don't already have the functionality in place or turned on, we absolutely do still have time to work together, to collaborate, get your questions answered, and look at having this in place in time for your fall billing.
All right, and next question from Jane Wolfgang. Do you work with community colleges?
We do. Yep. So what we would say, Gene, is we can have a one-on-one conversation with your campus, with you and your team, just like we do with every school, right? Better understand your population, your enrollment numbers, the trends you're seeing, and then carry that conversation on from there. Absolutely.
And then more of an administrative question, but will the recording of this event be available for viewing later?
It will be. Yep. I have my colleague Shonda on the line, my friend Natalie from marketing is on. We're all collaborating behind the scenes to make sure that this is recorded and will be available. So we will, I believe it's going to be available through the GradGuard website or through our YouTube channel. I would more than imagine we'll have it available just through you and your team on demand, or if anyone's asking for it, right, we'll make sure that folks have access to it. But whoever asked for it, what I would say it's a great opportunity to either reach out to your NelNet account manager and follow up if you're looking for a copy. But one way or another, yes, we will ensure that everyone has a copy or has access to a copy of this. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And just a comment from Anna O'Brien. We currently have GradGuard on our NelNet portal, and the process was easy. It's a great tool for our students and families. The claim process has also been very easy for our students and families.
That's great. And you said it was Anne?
Anna.
Anna, great. And just so everyone else on the call knows, that was an unpaid sponsor endorsement from Anna. That was not seeked out ahead of the call. So Anna, thank you so much for that. And that's exactly the kind of feedback I think your peers are looking for, to know that it's easy, it works, and that there's great benefit behind this. So Anna, thank you so much for that comment. We appreciate it.
And I'm just going to throw an additional comment on that front. If you are a NelNet client, you are welcome to access the quad. There is a GradGuard section in there, so you are able to log in there and just ask GradGuard questions and get feedback from other schools. Our partners don't have access to it, and it's not because we don't love them, but it's because we want you to feel like it's a safe space that you can just ask the questions you need and not get a sales pitch.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jess.
Yep. And Anna says, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Nothing else? Okay, well, we certainly want to be cognizant of folks' time. We know we're approaching the top of the hour. Most of you probably have other meetings and places to get to. Again, a huge appreciation both on behalf of myself and Jess and the NelNet team for taking time out to join us today for the conversation, for your questions that you asked. My hope is that the information at least resonates, and that you can see value in the program, and to set up time to at least find out more about how we can help, ask your specific questions. So again, feel free to reach out to your account management folks at NelNet, reach out to GradGuard through the get@gradguard.com email website. One of us will work with you to set up a time to chat. Feel free to send us questions after the session if anything comes up. But with that, Jess, thank you so much. It's always great to see you. I appreciate your time and for joining us today. And we hope that everyone has a good rest of your day, good rest of your Thursday and week ahead and weekend ahead. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.